911 emergency. Do you need police, fire, or paramedics? I'm requesting police. I'm driving north on Linda and there were gunshots at the Walgreens. 3 gunshots. When I drove by, there were 2 people down, 2 males and 1 female. When police arrived at the Walgreens parking lot, they were met with a scene that would become one of the most puzzling cases they'd ever investigated. 2 men were on the ground. Both had been shot. One of them, Emmett Corrigan, was already gone. The other was Deputy Robert Hall, still alive but gravely injured. Nearby stood Robert's wife, Candy Hall, physically unharmed, sobbing over her husband's body, telling officers she had just witnessed everything unfold. A handgun was discovered only a few feet away, and investigators quickly determined it was the only weapon at the scene. But here's what didn't make sense. 2 men had been shot with the same gun. One was dead. The other was a trained law enforcement officer, and the only witness? A woman who had every reason to lie. This is the story of a love triangle that ended in blood, a deputy who crossed a line he could never uncross, and a witness whose story changed so many times that even a judge would call her the biggest liar he'd ever seen in 32 years on the bench. Before we dive into this mystery, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because here at Visões Proibidas, we investigate the cases where nothing is what it seems, where the truth hides behind lies, and where the people sworn to uphold the law become the ones who break it. Drop a comment below if you think you can solve this mystery. Who really pulled the trigger? Now let's begin. Robert Hall was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. The gunshot wound to his head was serious but not fatal. Meanwhile, Candy was escorted to the police department. She was placed into an interrogation room to give her account of what had just happened. Before the detectives sat down with Candy, they decided to stop at the hospital to see if Robert could tell them his side of the story. The deputy was conscious, able to speak, but clearly in pain and confusion. Do you remember what happened to you? What happened at Walgreens? Robert's response was fragmented, disoriented. Where's my wife? She's safe. Was she with you? Yes. Did she meet you there? Yes. Did you go there to meet somebody or did you go there to buy something? Robert paused, trying to piece together the events. I was told my wife was there. Your daughter told you that your wife was there? Yes. The detective pressed further. Hey Rob, do you remember there being an altercation or anything with anybody? Yes. There was another guy there. What happened with the other guy? We fought. He fought with you? Yes. Over what? My wife. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Over your wife. What happened during the fight, Rob? Robert's voice grew quieter, weaker. I don't know. Do you know this guy that you fought with over your wife? Yeah, it's her boss. The detective leaned in closer. What was the fight about, Rob? Robert's answer was simple, direct, devastating. He shot me. Investigators were unable to get any more information from Robert at that moment. However, they were able to confirm something crucial. The firearm found at the scene belonged to his wife, Candy. So the question became unavoidable. How did 2 men get shot with the same gun? And what led to the shooting in the first place? In order to get more answers, detectives began their interview with Candy. At this point, Candy had no idea if her husband was dead or alive. The weight of that uncertainty showed on her face. Oh God, please, God, please. The detective's voice was calm, professional. How long have you and your husband been married? 17 years. That's a long time. What does he do for work? He works for the county sheriff. Oh, he does. He's a deputy. The detective shifted gears. How did all 3 of you guys end up at the Walgreens? Candy took a breath, started her story. I was at Walgreens earlier and so was Emmett. I didn't know he was there. I went and got my prescription, and then when I was leaving, we started talking. We've been doing really well at work. We had a big case. He said he was going to go get some gas. I know his wife and his 5 kids. I said, okay. Candy claimed she went to Walgreens to pick up medication when she saw her employer, Emmett Corrigan, also picking up medication of his own. Candy was a paralegal. Emmett was a lawyer. Candy told detectives they were working on a big case. So Emmett asked her to go with him to get gas so they could discuss the case further. When they returned to Walgreens, her husband was there waiting. We drove back and Rob was there at Walgreens. I knew that because my daughter had called. Rob called me earlier. Oh God. We were all talking outside and I said, I'm going to go. The girls were calling me. I had my keys in my hand. I had my purse. I turned around and I heard pop, pop, pop. I didn't know what it was. I turned around and I hear Emmett make a sound. He fell. I look over and he's on the ground, blood all over him. I was like, oh my God. So I went over and I put my hand on it. Oh my God. The officer watching Candy left the room briefly. While he was away, she received an update on Robert's condition. He's in stable condition. Oh God, the gunshot wound didn't penetrate anything, so he's talking to the other officer right now. Thank you so much, he's doing okay right now. Oh God, please. Like you said, you thought it was just kind of a scratch mark. They kind of just grazed the top of his head. The relief in Candy's voice was palpable. Oh God, oh God, oh God. A detective should be here in a few minutes to talk to you. So when do I get to talk to Rob? Not for a little while. Not until this is all being investigated. Where was Rob when you guys went and got gas and pulled up? Was he in his truck? He was sitting in his truck, and he just got out. We've not been good. We've been talking about splitting and stuff. It's been bad for a while. Long. 3 years. He was very jealous. Well, not very jealous. I don't want to say that. He was just upset about my actions lately, which is basically I just had enough. Emmett being younger and good-looking, Rob assumed we were having some affair, which is not true. I actually know his wife and his kids, but Rob didn't want to hear that. Despite their age difference and the fact that Emmett was married with 5 children, police would later find emails between Emmett and Candy, proving that they had been having a very serious relationship for quite some time. Candy continued her story. He was upset when he got out of the truck. He was talking to Emmett. They kinda had words. Then this car drove by. I turned around to walk back to my car. The car drove by and I hear this pop. Oh God. Then I see Emmett on the ground. I see Rob on the ground. I just freaked out. I'm hoping and praying they have cameras outside of Walgreens in that parking lot. They do. I understand they do. It turned out that Walgreens did have cameras, and the detectives quickly gained access to them. The first video showed Candy arriving at Walgreens, getting into Emmett's truck and leaving. While they were gone, Robert's truck pulled in. The deputy got out. He entered the store like a man on a mission, walking down the aisles, looking for his wife. When he realized she wasn't there, he went back out to his truck, and he waited. Unfortunately, there were no cameras where the shooting took place, and since Candy was the sole eyewitness, it was critical that she be interviewed thoroughly. Hopefully, she could explain how 2 men were shot with a single gun. The detective returned to the interrogation room. Are you good with talking with us right now? I mean, you got brought down here as a witness. Are you willing to voluntarily talk to us and tell us what happened tonight? Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine it was a horrible event. You work in a law office. Please help us put this together as best as we can. We'll match statements with evidence. I know. I do it all day long. Where does this thing start? Basically at home. Who's all involved tonight? It would be Robert, my husband, and Emmett Corrigan, who is my boss and friend. Rob has had a really hard time with me working with Emmett. Emmett being younger, this aggressive attorney. I have been working with him since October. He got jealous at a point. We were bad in our relationship. All those emotions came mixing in. When I went and got gas at Fred Meyer with Emmett, we were driving back. My daughter called me. She said, "Mom, where are you?" I'm on my way back. I told her I was with Michelle. That is my best friend, Michelle, because I didn't want to tell her who I was with. She told her dad. I could hear her saying she's with Michelle. I said I have to pick up my car at Walgreens. That's where it is. I left my car at Walgreens. I said we're just driving around. Michelle and I are driving around. We've had a bad night. I'm talking to Michelle. Then Rob calls. He calls me and I pick up. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said I am out. He said, "Are you out with Emmett?" I said I am. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're just talking." Then Emmett said, "Let me talk to him." So Emmett got on the phone. He said, "Rob, we're talking." Rob must have said something like, "What are you talking about?" Emmett said, "I'm talking about life, that's all." Then Emmett got really upset with Rob on the phone. He said something like, "Break your head or something." I looked at him. I kind of hit him on the shoulder. I said, "What are you doing?" I grabbed the phone. I said, "I'll be there in just a second." When we pulled up, Emmett got out of the truck. I got out, and I stood there. Rob came up. Emmett's a very aggressive man. He bodybuilds. He's really pumped up all the time. He got like this close up into Rob's face. I said, "Hey, knock it off. This is ridiculous." They exchanged some words. Emmett was trying to put Rob down. I looked at Emmett. I said, "Knock it off. This is enough." Let's all be adults here and just leave. Emmett said, what are you going to do, Rob? You going to hit me? Rob said, I'm not going to hit you. I said, okay, look, I'm leaving. The next thing I knew, this car went by me. I waited for this car to go by. I said, I need to go. Hannah's at home. She just called me. I turned around to walk to my car. I hear pop, then pop. That's all I heard. I turn around and both of them are laying on the ground. What in the world? I didn't even know what the pop 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 was. It almost sounded like balloons popping. I ran over and I see this blood. I didn't see Emmett at this point because Emmett was on his side like this. I didn't know what was going on. I just see all this blood down his face. So I went over and I covered the wound on top of his head. I'm calling 911. Then I'm screaming for Robin. Then I took my hand off after I was talking to 911. I ran over to see what was wrong with Rob. I think Emmett had been shot here because there was water coming out of his nose. Then I just freaked. I look up and Rob's standing up. I was like, oh my God, get down, get down. He's walking towards me. Oh my God, oh my God. There was a gun over by Rob. Not by him, but over to the side. He went down to grab it. I said, no, 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 no. I grabbed it from him. He's walking after me. I'm holding on to him like this. I tossed the gun like this. He collapsed where the paramedics got him. I shoved the gun. I just threw it in the middle of the street. Candy claimed to have handled the firearm after it had been fired, which would explain why her fingerprints were found on the weapon. The problem remained. How did two men get shot with the same gun? Candy had already lied about having an affair with Emmett, so detectives were concerned she was lying about the gun as well. Did you pick up the gun? I did. So you carried the gun for a distance? Yeah. I pushed it over and I just threw it in the middle of the street. I didn't know. Was he going for the gun? Was he going for something? I don't know. You heard pop, pop, pop. Like a pause? Yep. Like how long of a pause? Seconds. But a definite pause. Yeah. Pop. Pop. There's nothing going on. He was here. I was here. Emmett has 5 children at home. He was getting Dayquil or something to that nature. Emmett said, you going to hit me? You going to hit me, Rob? Is that what you're going to do? Rob's like, I'm not going to hit you. Emmett said, why? You don't want to lose your job, do you? Rob's like, I'm not going to hit you. I just want to know what is going on. Emmett said, because you're a jerk. That's why. He was in Rob's face. Rob's like, I want to know why you're with my wife. I said, Robert. I looked at him. I said, I'm an adult here. I can be with who I want to be with. He's not a stranger or anything like that. Emmett said, you don't want to do that, Rob. You don't want to get in my face. I'll break your head. That's when I said enough. I need to go. Hannah called. I need to go. Emmett, get back in your truck. Rob, come with me. We need to go home. I got to go. Hannah called me. I turned around to walk to my car. That's when I heard it. Before the detectives figured out how the 2 men were shot, they wanted to focus on Candy and Emmett's relationship. The police had found emails and text messages between them, showing they were involved in a very serious relationship. Are you and Emmett involved in a romantic relationship? No. Have you ever been romantic with Emmett? No. Have you been intimate with Emmett? No. The detective paused, letting the silence hang. When officers were coming up and everything was going on, I did not tell them that I had picked the gun up. I didn't know what he was doing. I picked it up and I just scooted it in the street. So, your fingerprints will be on it? Yes, they will. Have you ever been arrested? No. We'll probably need to get your fingerprints. Yeah. I worked for Ada County prosecutors, so they took my fingerprints. We'll work through that. Was it truly coincidental that Emmett was going to Walgreens at the same time you were going to be there? Or were you guys going to meet and talk? Purely coincidental. In Rob's eyes, did this certainly look bad? You and Emmett together? Yes. You come home. You have a shot of tequila. This is your Friday, but Rob's there. Yep. You guys have some discussion. Yes. That doesn't go well. He's like, you haven't been wanting to talk to me every day. You come home. You're tired. I'm like, I am. Rob said, Candy, why don't you just tell me you're having an affair? I said, I'm not having an affair. I don't know what you want me to say. He said, I don't believe you. I truly think that you are involved with Emmett. I said, I'm not. I know you think that, because the way we communicate with cases, text, on the phone, everything. I get that. Fact of the matter is I'm not. Help me understand. Are you sure you're not emotionally attached to him? Yeah. Is that true? Yeah. I mean, yes, I think I am. I'm just trying to understand the dynamics. Sure, I think I am very attracted to him, in the sense of emotional. Yeah, it's one of those things. He picks me up, boosts my confidence. I think it was at a point where I started really feeling happy the last 6 months. Better about myself. My parents saw it in me. I'm not so codependent. I'm not scared to be by myself. I'm fine. Could that be the standoffishness that Rob's been seeing in you? Yes, the male side. When a husband asks the wife, "Are you having an affair?" he's thinking physical. Correct? Oh yeah. Well, no. Actually, Rob even said it's emotional, isn't it, Candy? I said it is. I admitted to him that I was attracted to Emmett. The first thing we want to do is collect gunshot residue. See if there's any gunshot residue from your hands. Okay, so we have a kit for that. We're going to collect your clothes because they have blood on them. That'll help piece the puzzle together. Sure, you might have a little bit on your face. I probably do. Don't touch anymore. Oh, sorry. We might swab a couple spots there. Treat you as a mini crime scene. The officer performed a gunshot residue test on Candy's hands to see if she pulled the trigger. What he found strange was that the firearm used belonged to Candy. Why would a deputy use his wife's gun when he had access to his own higher caliber firearms? I just wish I knew everything that happened. I just want to know. There wasn't even any fighting, no punching, nothing. God, I was going to ask you, the gun that you picked up and moved. Yes. Do you recognize that gun? No, I don't. Ever seen it before in your life? No. I didn't have a chance to even look at it. I just know it was little. Did we cover where you thought that came from? I don't know. I have no idea. We don't know how that got introduced into the equation tonight. I have no idea. The results would come back negative. However, this was not definitive evidence that Candy wasn't the shooter. Gunshot residue can be removed by washing or wiping hands, sweating, rubbing hands together, even passing time. Some firearms, especially small caliber weapons like the one found at the crime scene, produce very little residue. Despite her many contradictions and lies, Candy was released. But she wouldn't stay free for very long. Meanwhile, Robert was finally released from the hospital after recovering from his gunshot wound. He would be interviewed by a detective. I know you've spoken to one of our officers initially about this, but since you got released, I wanted to talk to you about what happened, what led up to all this, how we ended up here today. I haven't been able to call my daughters or my parents or my wife or anybody since I've been in the hospital. Okay, I have no idea what's going on. That's why we came in today, to talk to you and get your side of this. Yeah, I better talk to an attorney first though. Okay, from here we'll just have the officers that brought you transport you over to the county jail. They'll book you in there. Robert refused to talk to the police, so he would be arrested and charged with murder. A gunshot residue test had been done on Robert while he was in the hospital, and it came back positive. This led investigators to believe that Robert was the shooter, but they still had to answer one haunting question. Was Robert shot during a struggle for the weapon? Or did he turn the gun on himself after Emmett went down? Ballistics would show that the firearm was at least 3 feet away from Emmett when he was shot, so it wasn't likely to have gone off during a struggle. If we are to believe Candy, to this day, only Robert knows the answer to that question. Robert would be convicted of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Candy was not charged in relation to this case. However, a year later, she would be sentenced to 2 years in prison for grand theft. Candy was accused of stealing over $30,000 from a former law firm where she had worked. After serving her 2-year prison sentence, Candy remained on probation for 12 more years. During Candy's theft trial, the judge made a stunning observation. You had an affair with her husband and he wound up getting murdered, but you seem highly offended by this whole thing. Look, I understand and I am so sorry about everything. I understand. Have you told the truth through all of this? The truth of what I know? Yes. Did the judge say you were a liar? Did he say you were the biggest liar he had ever heard since he had been on the bench? Yes. He was saying that in the 32 years he was on the bench, he has never heard anybody change their story as much. Did she change her story? From what I could tell, was there one story where she saw what happened? Another story where she didn't see what happened? Yes. There are many theories as to what really happened that night in the Walgreens parking lot. Some believe Candy orchestrated the entire encounter, that she intentionally brought her lover and her husband together, knowing that violence would erupt. Others believe Robert acted alone, a jealous husband pushed to his breaking point, who took his wife's gun and executed the man he believed had destroyed his marriage. But here's what we know for certain. Emmett Corrigan went to Walgreens that night to pick up medication. He left 5 children without a father, a wife without a husband. Robert Hall, a sworn deputy, became a convicted murderer. He will spend the next 3 decades behind bars. And Candy Hall, the woman at the center of it all? She walked away from the shooting without charges, only to be imprisoned later for stealing money. The surveillance cameras captured arrivals and departures, but they didn't capture the shooting itself. The only person who saw what happened was a woman a judge would later call the biggest liar he'd ever seen in 32 years on the bench. A woman whose story changed so many times that even prosecutors couldn't determine the full truth. The gun belonged to her. Her fingerprints were on it. She admitted to being emotionally involved with the victim. She lied about the affair. She lied about picking up the gun. She changed her story repeatedly. Yet she was never charged with any crime related to that night. Robert Hall maintains that Emmett shot him first, that he acted in self-defense, but ballistics told a different story. The gun was too far from Emmett when he was shot. There was no struggle, just 3 shots in a parking lot, 2 men on the ground, and 1 woman whose testimony would determine who lived and who died, who went to prison and who walked free. If this case made you question everything you heard, hit that like button and subscribe to Visões Proibidas, because the truth isn't always what it seems. Sometimes the only witness is the least trustworthy person in the room. Drop a comment below with your theory. Do you think Candy planned this? Do you think Robert acted alone? Or is there a third possibility nobody considered? Let's discuss. Until next time, remember this. When the only witness is someone with everything to gain and nothing to lose, the truth becomes whatever story they decide to tell. And sometimes justice is blind not because it's impartial, but because it simply can't see through the lies. Stay aware, stay skeptical, and never trust a story that changes with every telling. Because in cases like this, the biggest mystery isn't who pulled the trigger, it's who's really telling the truth.